Este clip pertenece a la primera clase de una formación internacional histórica en terapias contextuales, ACT con algunos de los referentes más importantes del modelo, Kelly Wilson, Carmen Luciano, Kirk Strauss-Hall, Robin Walser, Francisco Ruiz y Bárbara Gil Luciano. Clase en directo con acceso posterior en diferido, con subtítulos en español y algunas opciones de pago a plazos. Inscríbete ahora en nuestra web www.engranpsicología.es.
The last one, and it's kind of a heartbreaker, is the work Patty Bach did working in Psicosis back in the 1990s, the first ACT work with Psicosis. And one of the things that Patty did was to ask people that she was working with and with these really profound psychotic disorders what their favorite parts of the treatment was. And some of the ones that they reported was the values work. Now, if you think about the crucible of questions that a person with a serious psychotic disorder inhabits, think about like the questions they get asked every time they see a healthcare provider. You know, are you homicidal? Are you suicidal? Have you been taking your medications? Have you been having hallucinations and delusions? Every single time that they see a provider, they're going to be asked those questions. But how many times are they asked, so basically homicidality, suicidality, symptoms, and medication compliance. If that's most of the questions you're asked, that's who you become. And it's a tiny, tiny little world. Patty told me once of a survey that they did of people leaving the psychiatric ward with these psychotic disorders and asking them if something could change in your life, what would you hope to have change? And like nobody writes, I would like to have fewer symptoms. The number one and number two things that they said that they wished would change is that I wish I could have a relationship and I wish I could work. How often are they asked about those things? In fact, healthcare providers tend to be hesitant to ask about those kinds of things because they're really afraid that the person can't have them. Right? Patty asks, and in the asking richens that world. I think that psychotherapy is creative work. I'd invite you to think in your own life about the people in your own life who have had that deep and persistent curiosity about you. And if you can count 2 or 3 in a lifetime, then you've lived a fortunate life. You have to imagine that for some of our most difficult clients, that they've had 0. Like not one person who wanted to know them for their own sake. And I hope you can see and appreciate the meaning that has on the emergence of self, the sort of constraint that puts. Like, what does it mean to you and about you if no one in the world gives a shit what, is happening or has happened in that world? That undivided curiosity is meaningful to our clients, and about our clients. And I think about us also, because I am, for myself, honored that I have had that job of sitting still long enough to hear people's stories, where they've been and where they might go. Lots of skills to teach in here, but I would say just like that guy that I trained at that group home, 40 years ago, the skill is just the medium not the end.
Esta clase pertenece a la formación internacional en terapias contextuales, una formación histórica en AC con algunos de los principales referentes del modelo. A continuación te dejamos el tráiler de la clase completa.
You know, if you look into the eyes of that guy, what you see is someone who cannot tolerate being in this world, being the person that he had become. And I was convinced to a certainty that everyone in the world would be better off if I was dead. And I am like 30 years old and I've got scars on my arm from, injecting heroin. And, like I feel so out of place, like I don't belong here. And so sometimes when I'm raising my hand, I'm trying to sound like somebody who's smart enough to belong there. But really what the response is about me managing my own fears about belonging. I think it was the first time I wasn't planning to do something right. I was in the middle of doing something right. I had become someone who could do something. And I knew that behavior analysis, I could see that behavior analysis was a liberating force for the people who I was working with. Can behavior analysis help us to understand this?
Si quieres profundizar en lo que has visto, recuerda que puedes acceder a las clases en directo, verlas después en diferido, contando con subtítulos en español, y además elegir entre varias opciones de pago a plazos. Inscríbete ahora en www.engranpsicología.es.